Welcome back. You're still watching Wake Up Nigeria. And of course, it's Thursday, and on Thursday, we like to do a little book review. But this particular book, there's nothing little about it, okay? The title of the book is Dear Naija Girl. It's a book on what it means to be a female in Nigeria. And of course, it's written by Cynthia Osajibenedict. Welcome to Wake Up Nigeria.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, of course, you're an exceptional writer, and of course, your skills are literally like really good. Because I actually took time last night. I didn't sleep early yesterday because of you, to read at least a few chapters of your book. And I must say, I mean, talk about books that people need to read, female, male, whoever. We definitely need to read. So now tell me, first of all, about your background in writing.
Okay, so my writing came to me as more of a surprise because it was more like a personal passion.
Okay.
It was how I escaped the world. It was how I'm able to just go through my feelings and process. So I mostly write for myself. But the spur to put out a book came in 2020 during the lockdown. I had the pleasure of having some conversation with some men that I got stuck in the house with, and some women as well. And it started a conversation that I felt like we haven't been able to actually properly, break down or digest. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of me to explain this thing to everyone at different times, why not just put out a book so everyone can just have the opportunity to learn and read and just have this knowledge at once.
Yes, I mean, put a book together that encapsulates
everything.
It all. So now, of course, I said I spent a few hours last night reading this book. I'm like, I should be sleeping. I'm waking up by 4 a.m. in the morning. But I'm like, by 2, I was like, you know what? Let me keep scrolling. And I was reading. And of course, that's because, I mean, the manner in which you write, for me, I think I find great joy when I'm reading a book and it's simple to understand. But at the same time, your book, considering the topic, it has a whole lot of, I don't know how to put it, but then again, of course, still easy to read, break down, and understand. Now, let's talk about the first chapter. The first chapter where you share your story. Something I think is very interesting was the fact that you shared your story. However, it didn't actually, cast a shadow over your research on the topic on feminism. So let's talk about your first chapter.
Okay, so first of all, when it comes to writing, for me, I like to write in a way that everyone is able to assimilate and easily digest the content, because especially because, Nigeria is where we don't have great reading culture and people have like low attention span. So I wanted them to feel like they were having a conversation with their friend, with someone that they know. My first chapter, I was very worried about sharing my story, of course. My publisher was like, do you really want to do this? Do you want to put yourself out there like that? But in the course of doing the research for this book, I had to interview about 1,897 women. Wow. And I did not feel comfortable telling people to share their story if I was not willing to share mine. So I had to be vulnerable in order to open the door for people's vulnerability to come through. So that was why.
That actually makes a whole lot of sense. Okay, now you actually came from an experience where you actually grew up with your mom not being so around, right? And of course, your dad had to do all of that. But then again, you made mention of the fact that there were still key women in your life that actually made the journey worthwhile and of course opened your eyes to different parts, right? And all of that. So now it takes me to the next chapter. So through your experience, you experienced feminism at one handle, right? In chapter 2, you go ahead to explain or break down the reasons. Right. So now I want you to put those reasons out there. So now tell me you mentioned religion being one of them. So what are the others? And can you explain briefly how this contributes to the state of things here with the balance between the male and female gender?
Okay, so we have like different tools of which, women's experience as, Nigerian, how girl childs go through the process of society. And I say the process of society because we have to go through different channels, different experiences, different people as well. So when it comes to religion, I try to break that down as much as I could in the book, of how we're always so focused in churches on teaching the girl child and molding the girl child and passing us through a particular moral spectrum that we don't pay attention to the men.
True.
Even till now, if you go to church as a young woman who is grown to a certain extent, you hear about how, you should get a husband, you should do this, pay tithes, focus more on God. join female community, be a good wife, and all those things that you have to do. But no one teaches the man how to be a good husband. No one teaches them that beyond your financial capacity, there has to be more about you, for you. There has to be more you bring to the table. The same thing happens towards the family. In the house, you see everyone is so focused on raising the girl. No one pays attention to the men. And then you hear this stereotype, this popular stereotype where they say, oh, the male child are easy to raise, boys are easy to raise. And that's because they feel like boys don't need so much attention. But guess what? They do need so much attention, because look at the men in society today.
Look at them. Just look at them. Sir Francis, best man, Matthew, just look.
It's crazy. And I always say this, that it's easier to change a woman than it is for you to change a man. It is why I always say you can't...
Pause. Say that again.
It is easier. It is easier for you to change a woman than for you to change a man, because they raised us in a moldable way, but they don't raise men that way. They raise them in a strictlist way, and of course, they allow them to do whatever they want to do, go sow your wild oats, to do whatnot. But the templates and the rules are different for women. And so when we leave the family, when we come to friendship, it's the same thing. As a young child, how many times were your parents encouraging you to be friends with boys? They teach you from early on that boys are the enemy. They touch you, this one happens. If they smile at you, this one happens. And then they teach men to look at women a certain way from childhood. And I know that most parents mean well, but what happens now is that boys now see girls as sexual objects, and girls see men as men. But we rarely have the opportunity to just be friends, to just create bonds, and to just create, friendships that are, platonic, which is why as grown women and as grown men, it's very, very, very hard to have friendship without that undertone sometimes.
True.
Yes.
True.
So there are so many other, processes and tools and things that, that influence our experiences as women, growing up as girl child and becoming the women we are today. You said briefly, so I'm just
Yes, I mean, it's applaudable, the work you did there and breaking a lot of things down. The reason why I think everyone should actually read that book. So now you did mention that, despite the fact that society, as we will say, have literally made certain things certain ways, right? Men have their role to play in this whole situation of gender inequality. But you also highlighted the fact that women also have a role to play in this. Okay, so now I want you to throw more light on that.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying that growing up, I always thought that the stereotype, again, of course, that, we throw around where we say women are women's problem. I always thought that was, like a myth. All women can't be that bad. But growing up as a girl, I've realized that, oh my days, this is so true. And the funniest thing is that you're going to expect it to be your peers that are going to be your problems. But your problem is going to come down towards the first generation, from the great-grandmothers to the grandmothers to the mothers to the sisters to the friends to the whole thing. And then you realize that the problem, that was one of the things that gave me a clear definition of what my feminism is. The problem is not men. The problem is patriarchy. And people don't understand that these two things are different. We always tie patriarchy to men, but patriarchy is not an ideology of men. It is not a perspective of men. It is a perspective and an ideology of society. So the problem now is patriarchy, which is propagated by men. And of course, supported and kept and enabled by women who do not know any better, and those who actually know better but are scared to come out of their own defined standard of living, because this is what they've known all their life. So they always make it seem like when you divide from the trail a little bit and get to know yourself as a person and realize that, okay, this is not the life that I want to live, it always seems like, oh my God, you've gone mental.
You've lost your mind.
You've lost your mind.
Yes. I mean, talking about this book, Dear Niger Girl, I mean, it could go on and on for a very long time, but then again, we're very sure, we're tight on time, so we have to go now. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
And I'm definitely looking forward to reading your second book. Dear Niger Girl was your first book.
Yes.
Now, the second one, Sex After Harmattan.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I was saying. Thank you so much. Of course, right now...